Something wasn't right, and deep down, I could feel it gnawing at me. At first, it was just little things, her phone always on silent, quick glances away when she thought I wasn't looking. Then came the excuses, late-night meetings, weekend trips with friends I'd never even heard of. She wasn't the same Emily I'd known for 7 years. Even when we were together, her mind seemed miles away, her gaze distant, as if she was carrying some secret I wasn't meant to uncover. We were expecting our first child, a moment that should have brought us closer. We'd spent years building this life, this partnership, and we were about to step into parenthood. But instead of drawing us together, it felt like something was pulling us apart, brick by brick, leaving an invisible wall I couldn't seem to break through. One night, I sat on the couch, the weight of it all pressing down on me. A half-empty glass of whiskey sat in my hand, the room bathed in the dim glow of a single lamp. I kept telling myself not to overthink it, not to let my imagination get the better of me. But then the front door creaked open, the sound startling in the silence. Emily had told me she'd be working late, but the clock had ticked past midnight hours ago. I turned toward the door, my heart thudding in my chest. She walked in with a casual air, her smile just a little too bright, her movements deliberate but strained. "Hey," she said lightly, as if nothing was out of the ordinary. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't just paranoia. Something was wrong. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't keep ignoring it. "Hey," she said, her tone cheerful but slightly forced. She slipped off her coat and hung it by the door, then walked over to me, the faint click of her heels echoing in the quiet room. "Late night?" I asked, keeping my voice calm, though my eyes searched her face for some kind of explanation. "Yeah, work's been insane lately," she replied, her gaze skirting away from mine. "You know how it is, sometimes things just run long." She moved toward the kitchen, heading straight for the sink. I set my glass down and followed her. "What kind of project has you working these late hours so often?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light, though I couldn't hide my curiosity. She glanced over her shoulder, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. "It's just a project, Ethan. It's complicated." I nodded slowly, watching her fill a glass with water. She took a sip, her eyes fixed on the wall like she was trying to escape the conversation. "Is there anything I can do to help?" I offered, trying to keep the dialogue open. "No, it's fine," she said shortly, her voice clipped. "Look, I know it's late. Let's just talk about it tomorrow, okay?" I nodded again, though my gut churned as I watched her walk down the hallway and disappear into our bedroom. Her answers replayed in my mind, each one sounding practiced, as if she'd rehearsed them. I wanted to trust her, I needed to trust her, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. Later that night, after she'd fallen asleep, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone on the nightstand. My heart thudded as I reached for it, hesitating with my hand hovering over the screen. I didn't want to cross a line, but the doubt was eating me alive. She was my wife, the mother of our unborn child. I had a right to know if something was wrong. I tapped the screen, but it was locked. She'd never had a lock on her phone before. That tiny change felt like a punch to the gut. Why would she need to keep things hidden now? With a heavy sigh, I set the phone back down. Without solid proof, confronting her would just sound like baseless accusations. If I was wrong, it could break the fragile connection we had left. But ignoring it wasn't an option either. The next morning, I tried to gauge her mood over breakfast. She sat across from me, scrolling casually through her phone while sipping her coffee, looking perfectly at ease. It was like nothing was amiss. "Got any plans for the weekend?" I asked, keeping my tone light, trying to draw her out. "Actually, yeah," she said after a moment's pause. "I'm meeting up with some old friends from college. It's been forever since we've caught up." I raised an eyebrow. "I thought you were staying in town this weekend." It's been a while since we've had a weekend together. She glanced up briefly, then offered a small, apologetic smile. I know, but they already booked a cabin, and I didn't want to bail on them. Where's the cabin? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though I knew the edge in it betrayed me. Upstate, Emily said casually, not even looking up. It's just a few hours away. I'll be back Sunday. The silence that followed was heavy, both of us focusing on our plates as if the conversation hadn't happened. I could feel the tension tightening in the air, but she either didn't notice or was determined to act like everything was fine. All right, I said finally, forcing a smile that felt fake even to me. Have fun. She nodded and took a bite of her toast, her expression calm, her demeanor easy. If she was hiding something, she was doing a damn good job. And that made my unease burn even hotter. That weekend, after Emily left for her trip, I felt a strange mix of emotions: freedom, restlessness, and an almost suffocating sense of emptiness. The house was mine for a couple of days, but it felt more hollow than ever. The quiet amplified everything I was feeling, turning every doubt and suspicion into a roar in my head. I tried to distract myself, but as the hours dragged on, the agitation only grew. Eventually, I grabbed my phone and started flipping through our shared photo albums, vacations we'd taken, Christmas mornings, and birthdays with friends and family. Each photo was a reminder of what we'd built together, the life we were supposed to be growing into. But now, looking at them, all I could think about was how fragile it all seemed. Was I overthinking everything? Or was there something real I couldn't see yet? My phone buzzed, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was a text from my buddy, Tyler. *, hey man, free tonight? Let's *grab a drink*. I stared at the message, debating. Tyler was one of those friends you could tell anything to, no matter how messy it was. But I wasn't sure I was ready to unload all of this just yet. After a moment, I decided. Sure. Where and when? A few hours later, we were sitting in a quiet bar, a couple of drinks in. Tyler had been shooting the breeze, cracking jokes about work and football, but I could tell he knew something was on my mind. All right, man, he said, leaning in. Out with it. What's going on? You've been weird all night. I sighed, staring at the amber liquid in my glass. It's Emily, I admitted finally. I don't know, man. She's just different. Secretive. Secretive how? He asked, his tone serious now. I told him everything, the late nights, the sudden trips, the small changes that had been nagging at me. As I spoke, Tyler's face shifted from curiosity to concern. Have you asked her about it? He asked, choosing his words carefully. I've tried, I said, the frustration clear in my voice. She just brushes it off. Says it's all work stuff or just catching up with friends. He nodded slowly, taking in what I was saying. Listen, he said finally, if it's making you feel like this, you've got to figure it out. Otherwise, it's just gonna keep eating at you. I knew he was right. I had to get to the bottom of it, one way or another. But how far was I willing to go? The idea of snooping, of hiring someone to follow her, made my stomach churn. Still, without answers, I was just spinning my wheels, trapped in my own head. Tyler clapped a hand on my shoulder. I'm not saying it's easy, but you deserve to know what's going on, good or bad. You can't live in limbo forever. I nodded, though I didn't feel any better. The truth was, I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Part of me hoped this was just a misunderstanding, that I'd look back and laugh at how paranoid I'd been. But another part of me, the darker, more cynical part, was bracing for impact. By Sunday evening, I was pacing the living room like a caged animal, the house closing in on me. When Emily finally walked through the door, I tried to read her face, but she greeted me with the same calm, unreadable expression she'd mastered. It didn't tell me anything, and I hated that I couldn't tell if that was because there was nothing to find, or because she was just that good at keeping it hidden. "Good trip?" I asked, keeping my tone as casual as I could manage, even though I was certain the tension in my eyes betrayed me. Emily nodded, setting her bag down by the door. "Yeah, it was really nice. The cabin was beautiful." I forced a smile, pretending to listen as she gave a quick, almost rehearsed rundown of her weekend. But inside, the doubts gnawed at me, sharper than ever. I was done second-guessing myself. I needed to find out the truth, no matter what it might cost. The days after her return were strained. We barely talked, and when we did, it felt forced, like we were both walking on eggshells. My unease only deepened, solidifying into something I couldn't ignore anymore. What I had once dismissed as paranoia now felt like an unshakable certainty: something wasn't just off. It was wrong. A few weeks later, my younger brother, Adam, stopped by for a visit. Adam was the kind of guy everyone liked, charismatic, easygoing, the kind of brother you'd trust with anything. When he called to say he'd swing by, I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe catching up with him would distract me from the whirlwind of thoughts running through my head. We were sitting in the living room, chatting about work and life, when Emily came in carrying coffee for us. She handed me my cup, then placed Adam's on the coffee table. Her hand lingered just a second too long. I watched the way they exchanged glances, subtle but impossible to miss. It wasn't the kind of look you give your husband's brother. It was warm, familiar, and charged in a way that made my stomach twist. Clearing my throat, I forced a smile. "So, Adam," I said, trying to steer the conversation, "how's work treating you these days?" Adam broke eye contact with Emily and turned to me with his usual easy grin. "Busy as ever, you know how it is. But it's good to finally catch up. Feels like forever since we've had a chance to hang out." "Yeah, it has been a while," I replied, keeping my tone even, though my eyes flicked to Emily. "Life has a way of doing that, I guess." Emily laughed, a little too brightly. "That's why family's so important, right? Gotta keep those bonds strong." I clenched my jaw, her words ringing hollow in my ears. There was something off in the way she said it, something that only deepened the knot in my stomach. As the evening wore on, I found myself watching them closely. Every glance, every smile, every slight movement seemed to have an undercurrent I couldn't ignore. Their hands hovered just a little too close, their laughter seemed a little too easy. My mind was spinning: is this just my imagination running wild, or was I finally seeing the truth for what it was? That night, after Adam left, I lay awake in bed, my mind racing. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed answers, something concrete. The next morning, with a mix of dread and determination, I made the call I'd been avoiding. I hired a private investigator. It felt like crossing a line I never thought I'd approach, but I couldn't keep living in this limbo. The people closest to me, the ones I trusted the most, felt like strangers, and the thought of betrayal was a weight I couldn't carry much longer. The days that followed were unbearable. Every minute dragged, and I found it impossible to focus on anything. My phone became my lifeline, every buzz making my heart race as I waited for an update. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the call came. "Mr. Carter," the investigator began, his voice calm but firm, "we've gathered some information. I'll send over the photos and records for your review. I need to warn you, it's not easy to see." A cold pit formed in my stomach as I waited for the email to load. When the files finally appeared, I stared at the screen, bracing myself for what I knew was coming. Photo after photo unfolded in front of me. Emily, smiling and laughing, leaning close to Adam, their faces inches apart. A shot of them holding hands at a tucked-away cafe. Another of them sharing an intimate dinner. And then, the final blow, images of them outside a hotel, disappearing inside together late at night. Each image hit like a hammer to my chest, the weight of their betrayal sinking in. This wasn't some one-time mistake. It was deliberate, planned, ongoing, a calculated affair between the two people I'd never thought would hurt me like this. I clenched my fists, my breath heavy as I scrolled through the photos, anger bubbling just beneath the surface. But I didn't let it take over. Not yet. Confronting them now, without a plan, would only give them the upper hand. For now, I'd wait. But I knew this much: when the time came, I wouldn't hold back. That evening, Emily walked into the kitchen with a smile, her movements as casual as ever. I was seated at the table, pretending to read the newspaper, though my mind was consumed by the damning images I'd stared at for hours earlier. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked lightly, heading straight for the sink to pour herself a glass of water. "Busy," I replied, keeping my tone even, not glancing up. My pulse quickened at the sound of her voice. Every word she spoke now felt steeped in deception. She sat down across from me, her gaze flickering toward the paper in my hands. "Anything interesting?" I looked up, locking eyes with her for just a moment longer than I usually would. "Nothing I didn't already expect," I said quietly, the subtle edge in my voice deliberate, though I hoped she wouldn't pick up on it. She let out a nervous laugh, tucking her hair behind her ear. "You seem tense. Is everything okay?" I took a slow sip of water, pushing down the urge to unload everything I knew. "I'm fine," I said simply. "Just a long day." She studied me briefly, then seemed to relax. "Well," she said with a smile, "maybe we should plan a relaxing weekend, just us and the baby. It's been a while since we've done something together." The audacity of her suggestion almost made me laugh. Instead, I raised an eyebrow, masking my bitterness with a thin smile. "That sounds good. Maybe we'll talk then." Her face lit up at my response, her grin widening. "Perfect. I'll plan something nice for us." I nodded, though my thoughts were miles away, already turning over how and when I would confront the truth. I wanted them both to feel the weight of the betrayal they'd so carefully hidden. The next day, I called Adam. My voice was steady, measured, though every word felt like it burned my throat. "Hey, I was thinking we could hang out soon," I said casually. "It's been a while since it was just us." "Sounds good," he replied, cheerful as always. "How about this weekend?" I gritted my teeth, forcing my tone to stay light. "Sure. I'll let you know. I'm planning something special." After I hung up, my hand trembled as I set the phone down. The web of lies, the betrayal, it was all unraveling, and every piece of it cut deeper than the last. But I knew I had to bide my time. When I made my move, it had to leave no room for denial. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts raced with possibilities, publicly confronting them, exposing their affair to everyone who mattered to them. I imagined their smug faces shattering under the weight of their lies. Eventually, I gave up on sleep and headed to the den. Opening a drawer, I pulled out the folder of photos and records the investigator had sent. I flipped through the images again, my anger intensifying with every one I saw. Her laugh, his touch, it was all there, proof of their calculated betrayal. My fingers curled tightly around the papers, the edges crumpling in my grip. The right moment would come. I didn't know when, but I'd be ready. A few days later, everything shifted. I was at work when my phone rang unexpectedly. The hospital's number flashed on the screen, and adrenaline shot through me as I answered. "Mr. Carter, your wife has gone into labor," a nurse informed me. "She's arrived at the maternity ward. You'll want to come right away." My heart raced as I sped to the hospital, emotions colliding in my chest. I'd told myself that the birth of our child might offer clarity, a moment of grounding amidst the chaos of my suspicions and anger. But as I approached the hospital, a strange uneasiness began to settle over me. When I reached the maternity ward, a nurse stopped me just outside the room. "Sir, you can't go in right now," she said, her tone polite but firm. I frowned, confusion mixing with the edge of panic. "What do you mean?" "I'm her husband." Her expression softened, but there was hesitation in her voice. "Your brother is already inside with them." The words hit like a sledgehammer, stealing the air from my lungs. I froze, my mind racing to make sense of what I'd just heard. "My brother?" I asked, my voice low, strained. She nodded, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. It was in that moment I realized the truth was no longer hiding. It was standing right in front of me, undeniable and devastating. "Yes," the nurse said with a polite nod, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath my surface. "He's been here for a while." My blood roared in my ears as I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay composed. With a quick nod to the nurse, I brushed past her, each step toward the hospital room feeling heavier than the last. When I reached the door, I hesitated, my hand trembling on the handle. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open. The scene inside hit me harder than I ever thought possible. Adam was seated beside Emily's bed, holding the baby in his arms. The way he cradled the newborn, his face soft with a look of tenderness, sent a wave of nausea through me. It was as if he were holding his own child. Emily lay back on the bed, her face lit with a serene smile as she gazed at him. They didn't notice me at first. I stood there in silence, watching the moment unfold, my worst fears materializing in real time. Then I heard her voice, low, almost a whisper, but in the quiet of the room, it was as clear as a bell. "Once he's older, we'll tell him the truth about his dad. Until then, we'll use Marcus's money to take care of him." Her words sliced through me like a blade, leaving nothing but raw, exposed anger in their wake. My hands curled into fists at my sides as the fury inside me reached a breaking point. I stepped forward, my shadow falling across them. Emily's smile froze, her eyes darting up to meet mine. Adam turned pale, his grip tightening instinctively on the baby. "Oh. Marcus," Emily stammered, her voice barely audible, her expression a mix of panic and guilt. I raised a hand, cutting her off before she could say another word. My voice came out calm, but the venom beneath it was unmistakable. "Don't bother keeping up the act. Everyone's seen it now." Confusion flickered across their faces, but I didn't let it stop me. "Check your phones," I continued icily. "The video of you two is viral. Congratulations. Your little secret is public knowledge." Adam's hand fumbled for his phone, his movements frantic. Emily reached for hers as well, her fingers trembling. As they stared at their screens, their confusion turned to shock, then horror. The evidence was there, clear, undeniable footage of their stolen moments. Laughing together. Whispering. Touching. And finally, entering a hotel late at night. How could you do this?" Emily's voice cracked, her shock giving way to a mix of anger and desperation. "Oh, it was easy," I replied, my tone cold and calculated. "You left plenty of breadcrumbs for me to follow. All I had to do was connect the dots. And now, so can everyone else." Adam looked up from his phone, his face pale, his usual cocky demeanor replaced with vulnerability. "Marcus, this doesn't have to go this far. We can fix this." "Fix this?" I snapped, my voice razor sharp. "You think I'd ever be okay raising a child that isn't mine? Supporting the two of you while you lied to my face?" Emily reached out toward me, her eyes wide with panic. "Marcus, please. Listen to me. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. I didn't want this to happen." I stepped back, looking down at her with a cold, steely expression. "No," I said, my voice hard. "You didn't want to get caught. That's the truth, isn't it? You were happy to keep me in the dark, using me like some kind of paycheck. Adam hung his head, his voice shaky as he finally spoke. "This is between Madison and me, Marcus. You didn't have to make it public." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "Public? Oh, it is public now, Adam. And that's exactly where it belongs. People deserve to know who you really are, both of you." Emily's face crumpled, her composure cracking as tears welled in her eyes. "Marcus, please. You have to understand, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I love you. I really do." I stared at her, the woman I thought I knew, and felt nothing but cold detachment. "Love?" I said, my voice low and sharp. "You don't destroy the people you love. You betrayed me. You betrayed us. That's not love. That's selfishness." Her tears fell freely now, her voice trembling. "Marcus, please, don't do this." But I was done listening. The damage had been done, and there was no turning back. Marcus let out a bitter laugh, the sound cutting through the room like ice. "Love me? That's what you call this? You betrayed me, Madison. Everything we built, everything I trusted, you tore it apart, and then you lied to my face, over and over again. Don't stand there and insult me by calling this love." Adam shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his usual cocky confidence now replaced with something that looked a lot like shame. "Marcus," he began, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "I know what we did was wrong, but we never meant to hurt you like this." I turned to him, my gaze cold and unflinching. The anger I'd held back for weeks now threatened to spill over. "You didn't mean to hurt me. You had an affair with my wife, Adam. My wife. You sat in my house, drank my beer, joked with me, all while stabbing me in the back. And now you want to act like you're some kind of victim? Don't insult my intelligence." Adam looked down, unable to meet my eyes. Emily sat on the hospital bed, clutching the edge like it was the only thing holding her together. She sobbed softly, her shoulders shaking as the weight of the moment bore down on her. I straightened, forcing myself to stay calm, though my voice was cold and sharp. "I'm done. Done with both of you. You've made your choices, and now you'll live with the fallout. I'll make sure the baby is cared for, he's innocent in all this, but as for the two of you, you're on your own. Don't expect anything from me ever again. Marcus, please." Emily cried, her voice breaking as she reached toward me. "Don't walk away from us. Don't walk away from him." I stopped in the doorway, my jaw tightening as I turned back for one last look. "You think I'm walking away?" "No, Emily. You and Adam burned this bridge to the ground. I'm just refusing to stand in the ashes." Without another word, I turned and left, their stunned silence and Emily's quiet sobs following me down the hallway. The fallout was swift and unforgiving. The video and photos of Emily and Adam's affair spread like wildfire through our circles. Friends, family, and colleagues all recoiled in disgust, unable to believe what they'd seen. The scandal left no corner of their lives untouched. Adam was fired from his job within days, his employer citing damage to the company's image as the reason. Emily didn't fare much better. She was let go from her position, her colleagues unwilling to associate with the disgrace she'd brought upon herself. The secure, comfortable lives they'd taken for granted crumbled around them. For me, the days that followed were a blur of mixed emotions. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but the outpouring of support from friends and family reminded me that I wasn't alone. Their kind words didn't erase the hurt, but they helped me start to rebuild. A week later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, I found Emily standing there, looking pale and exhausted. She held the baby in her arms, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Marcus," she began, her voice trembling, "please, can we talk?" I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe, my face unreadable. What could you possibly have to say to me now, Emily? Tears streamed down her cheeks as she shifted the baby in her arms. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging you, for his sake. We have nothing now. Adam's gone. He left us. I don't know what to do. I glanced at the baby, my chest tightening. He was an innocent caught in the chaos of their betrayal, and no matter how much anger I felt toward Emily and Adam, I couldn't ignore the child. Still, my resolve remained firm. I told you I'd take care of the baby, I said, my voice steady. I'll make sure he has everything he needs. But as for you, Emily, you're on your own. You made your choices, and now you'll live with the consequences. Her sobs grew louder as she tried to find the words to plead with me, but I didn't falter. I stepped back and closed the door firmly, the sound of her crying muffled as I walked away. The echoes of her sorrow stayed with me, but I didn't look back. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Over the next several months, Marcus took deliberate steps to ensure the baby's future was secure. He arranged for financial support, setting up trust accounts and covering expenses so the child would never go without. But he kept his distance from Emily, drawing a firm boundary that she and Adam were never to cross again. The betrayal didn't fade easily. It lingered in the quiet moments, creeping into his thoughts when he least expected it. Anger and heartbreak became constant companions, but Marcus refused to let them consume him. Instead, he poured himself into his work, reigniting his passion for painting, a hobby he'd set aside years ago, and reconnected with friends who had rallied around him. Slowly, piece by piece, he began to rebuild. One evening, as Marcus strolled through a local park, the cool breeze brushing against his face, he crossed paths with Rachel. She was a friend of one of his colleagues, someone he'd met briefly at a gathering years ago. Rachel had an effortless warmth about her, a way of making even strangers feel seen and understood. They struck up a conversation, starting with casual pleasantries that quickly evolved into something deeper. Before long, they were laughing and swapping stories as though they'd been friends for years. For the first time in what felt like ages, Marcus felt himself relax, the weight on his chest lifting, if only for a little while. Over the next few months, Marcus and Rachel's friendship blossomed. She became a steady presence in his life, a reminder that not everyone would betray his trust. Rachel listened without judgment when Marcus opened up about his pain, offering gentle encouragement that helped him navigate the long road to healing. One evening, after a quiet dinner at her place, Marcus found himself sharing everything, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the doubts that had once threatened to consume him. Rachel listened intently, her hand resting lightly on his. When he was done, she squeezed his hand gently, her voice soft but unwavering. You didn't deserve what happened, Marcus. But the way you've handled it, the strength you've shown, that's what defines you. Not their betrayal, but your resilience. For the first time in a long while, Marcus felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that the worst was truly behind him. He looked at Rachel and smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. Thank you, he said quietly. For seeing me, and for reminding me of that. As months turned into years, their bond deepened, growing into something neither of them had expected. Rachel was his safe harbor, and together, they built a life marked by honesty, trust, and a mutual understanding of each other's vulnerabilities. Marcus learned to let go of the bitterness that had once anchored him, replacing it with gratitude for the life he was creating. Years later, Marcus sat on the porch of the home he now shared with Rachel. The warm hues of the sunset painted the sky, casting a golden glow over the yard where their son, Ethan, played with a kite. The boy's laughter rang out, carefree and full of joy, a sound that made Marcus's heart swell. Rachel leaned against him, her hand slipping into his as they watched Ethan run through the grass. Do you ever think about how far you've come? She asked, her voice quiet but thoughtful. Marcus smiled, his gaze fixed on their son. I do, he admitted. Moments like this, they make it impossible not to. Rachel turned to him, studying his face, the same face that had once been etched with pain but now radiated a quiet peace. "You've built something beautiful, Marcus. Not just this family, but within yourself. You took something so painful and turned it into strength." He turned to her, his eyes filled with gratitude and love. "I couldn't have done it without you, Rachel. You showed me that betrayal isn't the end, it's just a chapter. Life doesn't stop. It begins again, even better." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus felt a deep sense of contentment. The pain of the past was still a part of him, but it no longer defined him. In Rachel, he had found not just love, but a partner who had helped him rediscover hope. And in himself, he'd found the courage to move forward, to rebuild, and to thrive. She squeezed his hand gently. "We did this together, Marcus. But it was you who made the choice to keep moving forward." Though Marcus had found peace in the life he built with Rachel and their son, echoes of the past occasionally surfaced. Through mutual acquaintances, he would sometimes hear updates about Madison and Adam. Their lives had diverged, both of them struggling under the weight of their choices. Adam had moved out of state, working a series of unstable jobs, while Madison remained in the city, raising her child largely on her own. The spark they once shared had long since burned out, replaced by regret and the consequences of their actions. One day, as Marcus sorted through his mail, a familiar handwriting caught his eye. The letter was from Madison. For a long moment, he hesitated, debating whether to open it. Finally, curiosity won out. Slowly, he unfolded the note. "Dear Marcus, I've spent years wondering if I should write this letter or if I even have the right to. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, and I don't blame you. But there are things I need to say, even if you never forgive me. I'm sorry, Marcus. Not just for the affair, but for everything I destroyed, the trust we had, the life we built, the dreams we shared. I see now how much I took for granted and how deeply I hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope that one day you can remember me as someone who made a terrible mistake, not as someone who never cared. Our son, Jake, is growing so fast. He reminds me of you in so many ways, his curiosity, his determination. You've given him so much, even after everything, and I'll never be able to thank you enough for that. You didn't have to help us, but you did, and it speaks to the incredible person you are. I hope you found happiness, Marcus. You deserve it more than anyone I know. Sincerely, Madison." Marcus read the letter twice, his emotions a mix of reflection and detachment. There was no anger, no urge to respond. He had long since moved past the need for closure from Madison. Instead, her words brought an odd sense of relief, proof that even she understood the enormity of what she had lost. He folded the letter carefully and tucked it into a drawer. It was a quiet, final act, signaling the end of that chapter of his life. As the years went on, Marcus found joy in the simple beauty of everyday moments. He and Rachel raised Ethan with love and care, instilling in him the values of honesty, kindness, and resilience. Together, they celebrated milestones, Ethan's first steps, his first bike ride, and his first day of school. Each moment was a testament to the life they had built together, a life shaped not by the pain of the past but by the strength to move beyond it. One evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, Ethan looked up at Marcus, his bright, inquisitive eyes shining with curiosity. "Dad," he asked, his voice earnest, "were you always happy?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He exchanged a glance with Rachel, who gave him a soft smile, silently encouraging him to answer. "I wasn't always happy," Marcus admitted, his tone thoughtful. "There were times when life was really hard, and I didn't know how to move forward. But those times taught me something important, that no matter how tough things get, you can always choose to start over. And when you do, happiness can find you in ways you never expected." Ethan seemed satisfied with the answer and returned to his meal. Marcus glanced at Rachel, who reached across the table and placed her hand over his. In her gaze, he saw understanding, pride, and a love that had carried him through his darkest days. Marcus's journey was one of pain, betrayal, and loss, but it was also one of resilience, forgiveness, and renewal. His scars reminded him of where he had been, but they no longer defined him. Instead, they stood as proof of his strength, his capacity to heal, and his ability to find joy again. As the sun set on their backyard that evening, with Ethan's laughter echoing in the air, Marcus reflected on his life. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was full of love. And that was more than enough. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink, Marcus stood on the porch. Rachel was beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm, while Ethan ran through the yard, chasing the last rays of daylight. Marcus gazed out at the horizon, feeling a quiet satisfaction he hadn't known was possible years ago. The path behind him had been winding and painful, but the view ahead was filled with endless possibilities. He smiled, knowing the best chapters of his life were still being written. The years unfolded like a patchwork quilt, stitched together by moments of joy, challenge, and growth. Marcus embraced them all, finding beauty in the rhythm of family life. Ethan grew into a bright, curious boy whose boundless energy and unending questions filled their home with laughter and meaning. One evening, as Marcus tucked Ethan into bed, the boy peered up at him with those wide, thoughtful eyes that always seemed to catch Marcus off guard. "Dad," Ethan asked, his voice soft but serious, "what's the most important thing you've ever learned?" The question gave Marcus pause. Sitting on the edge of Ethan's bed, he smoothed the blanket over his son, gathering his thoughts. "That's a big question," he said with a warm smile. "But if I had to pick one thing, it's this: no matter what happens in life, you always have the strength to move forward. Even when it feels impossible, there's always a way." Ethan considered this, nodding slowly. "Is that why you're so good at fixing things?" Marcus chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "Maybe. Life teaches you how to fix things when they break. And sometimes, you learn how to build something even better." The boy yawned and snuggled deeper into his pillow, clearly satisfied with the answer. Marcus stood and turned off the light, lingering in the doorway for a moment to watch Ethan drift off to sleep. His son's quiet trust and innocence reminded him of the importance of the choices he'd made, to protect, to nurture, to rebuild. As the years passed, Marcus and Rachel's relationship grew even stronger. Together, they faced the inevitable ups and downs of life with unwavering support for one another. Their home became a haven, not just for Ethan, but for friends and extended family drawn to the warmth and steadiness the couple had built. One day, Rachel approached Marcus with an idea that changed their lives. "What if we opened our home to foster kids?" she asked. Her voice was tentative but hopeful. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Let's do it," he said, knowing the transformative power of love and stability firsthand. Over the years, they welcomed several foster children into their family, each one bringing unique challenges and unexpected joys. The experience enriched their lives, creating new bonds and weaving a tapestry of memories that made their family even stronger. On the 10th anniversary of their marriage, Rachel surprised Marcus with a small gathering in their backyard. String lights hung from the trees, casting a warm glow over the friends, family, and foster children who had become a part of their journey. As the evening unfolded, Marcus found himself reflecting on how far they had come. Rachel handed him a glass of wine and took his hand. 10 years, she said, her smile radiant. "Can you believe it?" Marcus glanced around at the people who had shaped their lives, smiling faces, voices filled with laughter, and then back at Rachel. His voice was soft, full of gratitude. "I can. Because you've been by my side every step of the way." Rachel leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. "We've both come a long way, Marcus. And I wouldn't change a thing." As Ethan grew into adulthood, Marcus watched with pride as his son forged his own path. The boy who once asked endless questions had become a young man of integrity, resilience, and purpose. On the day Ethan graduated from college, Marcus and Rachel stood in the crowd, beaming with pride. That evening, as the celebration wound down, Ethan pulled Marcus aside. "Dad," he said, his voice earnest, "I wouldn't be here without you. You taught me everything about resilience and what it means to love and protect your family." Marcus felt his throat tighten as he placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "You're going to do amazing things, Ethan. Just remember, you've got all the strength you need, no matter what life throws your way." As the years rolled on, Marcus continued to savor the life he had built. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, filled with love, growth, and the quiet joys that come from overcoming life's hardships. The pain of the past no longer defined him, it had shaped him, made him stronger, and taught him to appreciate the beauty in starting over. And as he sat on the porch once again, Rachel by his side and the next generation playing in the yard, Marcus couldn't help but feel that he had found everything he'd ever needed. Not despite the journey, but because of it. In the twilight of their years, Marcus and Rachel often found themselves sitting together on the porch, watching the sunsets paint the sky with colors that seemed to hold the stories of their lives. The pain of Marcus's past had long since faded, replaced by a peace that came from a life well lived and love deeply shared. Their journey wasn't perfect, but it was real, built on trust, forgiveness, and the lessons they had learned together. One evening, as the stars began to appear, Rachel broke the comfortable silence. Her voice was soft, filled with thoughtfulness. "Do you ever wonder what might have been?" Marcus turned to her, taking her hand in his. A gentle smile played on his lips. "I used to," he admitted. "But not anymore. Everything, good and bad, brought me here. To you, to our family. And I wouldn't trade this for anything." Rachel leaned into him, her warmth spreading through the cool night air. "You're the strongest man I've ever known, Marcus," she said with quiet affection. "And I'm so proud of what we've built together." Marcus looked up at the vast, starlit sky and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and uncertainty, but through it all, he had found a way to rebuild. His life had become a testament to resilience, love, and the enduring hope for a brighter future. In Rachel's love, Ethan's accomplishments, and the home they had created, Marcus had found his redemption. The twists and turns of his life had led him here, and as he sat with Rachel under the stars, he knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. As the years went on, Marcus and Rachel's lives grew richer. Their family expanded, not only through the foster children they had cared for but also with Ethan's success and, eventually, his own family. One crisp autumn evening, Marcus stood at the stove, stirring a pot as the rich aroma of roasted garlic and herbs filled the kitchen. Rachel walked in, drying her hands on a dish towel, and gave him a playful nudge. "You know," she teased, "if you keep cooking like this, you're going to spoil all of us." Marcus grinned, his face lighting up. "That's the goal. Spoil you all until you can't survive without me." Rachel laughed, wrapping her arms around his waist. "We'd survive," she said with a smile. "But it wouldn't be nearly as good." In that simple moment, surrounded by the warmth of their shared life, Marcus felt a profound sense of contentment. These were the moments he cherished most, ordinary, yet filled with extraordinary meaning. A few years later, Ethan and his partner announced they were expecting their first child. The news filled Marcus and Rachel with excitement, their anticipation growing as they prepared to step into the role of grandparents. When their granddaughter, Lily, was born, Marcus held her for the first time, his heart swelling with emotion. Her tiny fingers wrapped around his, and he whispered, "She's perfect." In that instant, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, as though life was gifting him yet another chance to love deeply. As Lily grew, Marcus became the doting grandfather everyone knew he would be. He read her stories, taught her how to draw, and played games with her in the yard. She adored him, affectionately calling him Grandpa Hero, a nickname that never failed to make him laugh. One summer, the entire family gathered at Marcus and Rachel's home for a reunion. The backyard buzzed with laughter and conversation, the scent of barbecue wafting through the air. Children darted between tables, their squeals of joy blending with the hum of adults sharing stories. Marcus stood off to the side, watching the scene unfold. Ethan was deep in conversation with some of the now-grown foster children Marcus and Rachel had once cared for. The threads of their lives had woven together into a rich tapestry, a legacy of love, resilience, and connection. Rachel joined him, slipping her hand into his. "Look at what we've created," she said, her voice filled with wonder. Marcus nodded, his heart full as he looked at her. "It's more than I ever dreamed of, Rachel. And it's all because of you." She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "No, Marcus. It's because of us." Together, they stood in the glow of the setting sun, surrounded by the life they had built, a life that began in brokenness but flourished in love and hope. For Marcus, the journey wasn't just about healing. It was about discovering that even in the face of heartbreak, there is always the possibility of something beautiful waiting ahead. And in that moment, with Rachel by his side and their family thriving around them, he knew they had created something truly extraordinary. As the years passed, Marcus occasionally reflected on his past. Memories of Madison and Tristan surfaced now and then, but they no longer carried the sting they once did. Instead of anger, he felt a quiet understanding. Life had taught him that holding on to bitterness only tethered him to old wounds. By choosing to let go, he had freed himself to embrace love, joy, and purpose. One afternoon, while cleaning out an old storage box, Marcus came across Madison's letter. He unfolded it and read it again, the words feeling like whispers from a distant life. There was no pain this time, only the calm acknowledgement of how far he had come. With a sense of finality, he placed the letter back in the box, sealed it, and put it away for good. It was a story long since closed. In his later years, Marcus found the porch to be his favorite place for reflection. It was a spot rich with memories, where he had shared quiet sunsets with Rachel, watched Ethan grow, and laughed with his grandchildren. It became a sanctuary, a place where peace resided as much in the air as it did in his heart. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the yard, Ethan joined Marcus on the porch. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, enjoying the serenity of the moment. "You know, Dad," Ethan said eventually, his voice steady, "you've always been my role model. Not just because of what you've accomplished, but because of how you've lived. You taught me how to rise above pain, how to build something real, and how to love fully. I just hope I can be half the man you are." Marcus felt his throat tighten, his heart swelling with pride. Turning to his son, he placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Ethan, you've already surpassed me in so many ways. Watching the man you've become is one of my greatest joys. I'm proud of you every single day." They sat together, watching the sun set on another day, the bond between them unshakable, built on love, trust, and shared wisdom. When Marcus's final days arrived, they were marked by the same quiet dignity that had defined his life. Surrounded by family, he reflected on a journey that had been anything but easy, yet deeply fulfilling. He had lived with integrity and resilience, transforming pain into purpose and creating a legacy of love that would endure. Rachel held his hand in those last moments, her voice steady as she whispered, "You've given us everything, Marcus. And we'll carry it forward. Always." With a peaceful smile, Marcus closed his eyes, the warmth of his family surrounding him and the knowledge that his life had been well lived. In the years that followed, Marcus's memory became a cornerstone of the family. His lessons, his kindness, and his unwavering strength were shared like treasured heirlooms at family gatherings. His story, a testament to forgiveness, love, and resilience, became an inspiration for generations to come. Ethan gracefully stepped into the role of patriarch, a responsibility he embraced with humility, guided by his father's example. He often found himself repeating Marcus's words, teaching his children the values of integrity, perseverance, and love. His daughter Lily, now a teenager, had inherited Marcus's artistic talent. She carried her sketchbook everywhere, often capturing scenes inspired by the stories she had heard about her grandfather. One summer evening, the family gathered at Ethan's home for a reunion. Laughter filled the air as children played, and stories of Marcus wove through conversations. Lily, with a shy smile, unveiled a painting she had been working on for months. It depicted Marcus sitting on the porch, bathed in the glow of a warm sunset, his face serene. In the background, faint outlines of family and memories formed a halo around him. "This is how I imagine Grandpa Hero," Lily said softly as the family admired her work. "Always watching over us, always part of who we are." Rachel, her eyes glistening with tears, stood and embraced her granddaughter tightly. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. He would have loved it." The painting was hung in a place of honor, a visual reminder of Marcus's enduring presence in their lives. His legacy wasn't just in the lessons he taught or the love he shared, it was in the way he inspired his family to live with strength, compassion, and hope. And as the sun set that evening, casting a golden light over the gathering, it seemed as if Marcus himself was there, watching over them, a quiet part of the joy and love he had helped create. As the years passed, Rachel remained the heart of the family. Her wisdom, warmth, and quiet strength shaped the lives of everyone she touched. Though the ache of losing Marcus never fully faded, she found comfort in the legacy they had built together, a legacy of love, resilience, and family. Through her stories and laughter, Marcus's presence lingered in the home they had created. One day, while sorting through old belongings, Rachel discovered a small, leather-bound journal tucked away in a drawer. It was Marcus's journal, a collection of reflections, sketches, and heartfelt entries he had quietly kept over the years. As she turned the pages, she felt as though she were hearing his voice again, reliving his journey through pain, healing, and love. One passage, written not long after their wedding, caught her eye. Rachel showed me the light when I thought my world had gone dark. She taught me to trust again, to dream again, to believe in love again. Every day with her feels like a gift, a reminder that life's trials don't define us, our choices do. With her by my side, I know I can face anything. Together, we've built a life I never thought possible, and for that, I am endlessly grateful. Tears rolled down Rachel's cheeks as she pressed the journal to her chest, whispering, "I'm endlessly grateful for you too, Marcus." Moved by the beauty of Marcus's words, Rachel decided to share the journal with the family. She gathered them together and read passages aloud, allowing everyone to see Marcus's thoughts in his own handwriting. The journal became a cherished heirloom, a tangible reminder of his wisdom, strength, and love. Generations later, Marcus's story continued to resonate. His great-grandchildren grew up hearing about his journey and the values he embodied. They learned that even in the face of betrayal and heartbreak, it was possible to rebuild, to find love again, and to create something beautiful. Marcus's life became more than a story, it became a cornerstone of their family's identity. A tradition emerged: every year, on the anniversary of Marcus's passing, the family would gather on the porch of the original home he and Rachel had shared. They would share memories, read from his journal, and celebrate the enduring lessons he had left behind. It was a time to reflect, to laugh, and to remember that resilience and love were at the heart of their family's strength. One summer evening, Ethan organized a special gathering. The family returned to Marcus and Rachel's home, now lovingly preserved by Ethan, a symbol of the foundation they had built. The porch, where so many meaningful moments had unfolded, was adorned with soft string lights. The air buzzed with the sound of laughter and the hum of conversation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the yard in a golden glow, Ethan stood and called for everyone's attention. The family quieted, their faces reflecting both curiosity and warmth. Tonight, Ethan began, his voice steady but laced with emotion, we honor not just the memory of my father but the lessons he taught us. Dad showed us that life isn't defined by the pain we endure, but by how we rise above it. He turned his struggles into a legacy of love, and that legacy lives on in every one of us. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the family, the children, grandchildren, and even the foster children Marcus and Rachel had once cared for, now grown with families of their own. We are here because of him, Ethan continued. Because of the choices he made to love, to forgive, and to build something meaningful. Let's carry his legacy forward, not just in our words but in how we live. Rachel, now seated near the front, wiped away tears as the family broke into applause. The warmth of the moment filled the air, a testament to the man whose life had inspired them all. As the years continued to unfold, Marcus's memory remained vibrant, a constant source of inspiration. His story was not just one of overcoming hardship but of transforming it into something extraordinary. It reminded his family that even the hardest trials could be the foundation for a life filled with love, meaning, and purpose. Under the stars that evening, as laughter and stories wove through the gathering, it was clear that Marcus Reynolds's legacy was far more than a memory. It was a living, breathing part of their lives, a reminder that resilience, love, and hope could shape not just a single life, but generations to come. Ethan paused, his gaze softening as he turned to Lily, now a poised young woman standing nearby. And tonight, he continued, I'd like to share something truly special. Lily has taken Grandpa's journal and, with her incredible talent, created something that I believe would make him proud. Lily stood, holding a beautifully crafted leather-bound book that mirrored Marcus's journal but was larger and more ornate. Her hands trembled slightly as she smiled at the gathered family. I've spent the last few years working on this, she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. It's a collection of Grandpa's journal entries, paired with my artwork, to tell his story in a way that future generations can connect with. She opened the book, and the room seemed to hold its breath. The pages were filled with Marcus's heartfelt words, interwoven with Lily's vivid and deeply personal illustrations. One page showed a young Marcus standing before a blank canvas, brush in hand, accompanied by the quote. Life doesn't give us finished masterpieces, it gives us blank spaces. What we choose to create is up to us. Another page depicted a hand releasing a rope tied to an anchor, paired with Marcus's reflection. Letting go of anger isn't about excusing the past. It's about freeing yourself to embrace the future. The family passed the book around, marveling at the artistry and care Lily had poured into it. Each page seemed to radiate the essence of Marcus's journey, his struggles, his triumphs, and his unwavering commitment to love and resilience. Rachel, now in her twilight years, held the book carefully, her hands trembling as she flipped through the pages. Tears streamed down her face as she looked up at Lily. You've captured his spirit so beautifully, she said softly. He would be so proud of you. The book, titled From Ashes to Grace, The Legacy of Marcus Reynolds, quickly became a cherished artifact of the family. Copies were made and shared among relatives and close friends, and its message began to ripple outward, inspiring others beyond their circle. Strangers who read Marcus's story found in it reflections of their own lives, their struggles, and their hope for renewal. Years later, when Rachel passed away peacefully in her sleep, the family gathered once more to celebrate her life. She was laid to rest beside Marcus in a serene, sunlit corner of the family property, a place surrounded by trees and flowers she had loved. On their shared headstone, a simple yet profound inscription read. Together, they built a life of love, resilience, and hope, a legacy that lives on. As the family stood by the gravesite, Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Mom and Dad taught us that no matter where we start or what we endure, we have the power to create something beautiful. They gave us more than a family, they gave us a way to live, a guide for how to love and persevere. The words hung in the air, carried by the gentle breeze, as the family drew closer together, united in their shared memories and the values Marcus and Rachel had instilled. In the decades that followed, the Reynolds family continued to thrive. The home that Marcus and Rachel had built remained a gathering place, a symbol of unity and love that grew with each generation. Every family member wove their own experiences into the fabric of the family story, adding to the legacy Marcus and Rachel had begun. Lily's book found its way into the hands of many more people over the years, touching lives and inspiring those who faced their own trials. It became a reminder that even in the face of betrayal, heartbreak, and loss, it was possible to rebuild, to forgive, and to create something meaningful and beautiful. And so, the memory of Marcus Reynolds endured, not just in the stories passed down at family gatherings or the journals read by eager young eyes, but in the lives of those who carried his legacy forward. His journey had shown that while life's trials may shape us, they do not define us. What defines us is the choice to rise, to love, and to build something lasting from the ashes. Generation after generation, the Reynolds family lived by Marcus's example, proving that a legacy built on resilience, love, and hope can transcend time, leaving an indelible mark on the world.